Good morning. Today is Tuesday, January 10th, 9:30 Mountain Central Time, and it's time for our live video chat with Sara Sach from Posh Pooch Designs. That's me. Isn't this cup amazing? I got this as a Christmas present from my sweet friend Tina. She's a part of our crochet group here in town, and it's the neatest thing. The spoon is right in the handle. You can add your cream and sugar and then put your spoon back and you don't lose your spoon. Whoops. I love it, and I also love the colors. Kind of reminds me of a crochet Afghan, doesn't it? I just love it. Anyway, if you're here today, be sure and clink in and tell us what kind of coffee you've got. I'm drinking mocha coffee. My son brought me over some Starbucks chocolate mocha coffees for my carrot yesterday. Yummo. Well, we have a lot of things to talk about. We have some new items. We have, I wanted to show you first. This is my temperature scarf. Is that not adorable? These are all the temperatures from this last week. I have 8 rows, counting yesterday. Good morning, Trish. And this is my beginning of my temperature scarf. I started with my single crochet and then worked my way up for 8 rows. I really love how this is turning out. And I also like the fact that it's a scarf, not a blanket, because last year, like I said, when I did the blanket, it was so huge and overwhelming. So this is going to be fun. And something that I do after every row is I go ahead and cut the yarn unless I look in the forecast, and it's going to be, because I'm using the high off my phone app in this area, the high temperature. If it's going to be within, I don't cut the yarn. That way I don't have to tie that end in. But when I look and it's going to be different, I go ahead and weave in that end because I don't want to have to put an edge on mine. So I've just gone ahead and weaved it in, made it all nice and tidy. And the neat thing about this stitch is it looks good on the front and the back. So that's our temperature scarf. If you haven't got involved in that, go ahead and get involved. The other thing that we have going on this week is yesterday I posted the video and the photo tutorial for our garnet square. Now each month I'm going to be doing a 6-inch square for that month that has to do with the birthstone of that month. January's birthstone is garnet, and so this is our garnet square. And I've got one still blocking here I need to get off the board. Now you only need to make one square, and at the end of 12 months, the whole year, we're going to make a bag out of it. I was going to do a scarf, but because we're doing a temperature scarf, I didn't want to do the same thing. So we're going to make a stash bag or a yarn bag, project bag, anything that has to do with bringing your yarn projects with you. And I'm still working on the pattern. I've got a really neat idea. And that's why I'm making 2 of each one, because I want to have one all made up and ready to go for when we do our last part of it. So let's kind of go out of order today. Let's go ahead and do what's going on Posh Pooch Designs this week first. Then we'll talk about our questions, and then we have a unboxing to do. I got a neat box from Red Heart this week with lots of new yarns in it, and I'm going to show them to you. I wanted to show you this though. Check this out. Can you see what it says? It says Yarn Goddess, and it's got a little shank of yarn right there, little skeins. My friend Tracy had these made for us in our yarn group. Is that not the cutest thing? I just love mine. So, my scarf. My scarf was made by my friend Anne. It's made in the teals with the butterfly stitch. Isn't it beautiful? It's like the softest yarn ever. And I just add my little butterfly to it because this kind of, she made this to represent the Hashimoto's Awareness Month. Good morning, Michelle. Did you clink in? Clink. I just love this new cup. Okay, so some things that are going to be happening this week is I did a super scrubby pattern. This is using one strand of cotton and 1 strand of the scrubby yarn. Really super easy to make. And the truth is you can hang these on the sink or the bathtub, and then you can take them off, scrub, wash it up real good, and hang it back up to dry. And I keep them on my bathtubs. And so I did a video about, oh, it was probably about this time last year when the scrubby yarns were first coming out. And I'm going to redo the video because it's taken a little bit of a distance, and it's when I was first starting, so it needs some work. So this is going to be a new video this week, probably tomorrow or the next day. And I love these scrubbies, and I love the scrubby yarn. This one is well loved and well worn, and look how great it looks. This is the main one I keep on my kitchen sink. I just grabbed it. We also did on Friday, we did the little dog snoods. And so they asked me, what's a snood? I told a snood is a cross between a hood and a cowl that a dog can wear, or even you can wear. You can make one for yourself. Good morning, Linda. But anyway, this is a free pattern, and this pattern will work for any size dog or cat. The truth is, you could even make one for you off this pattern. It's that simple. It's just the band. You measure how big you want your band. You do your double crochet rows. We do one decrease row and then a band again. Super easy. You can add as many rows as you want. This is Maximo's. This is Rosie's. They love them. They're comfortable. This one's made out of the Red Heart reflective yarn. That's it. Oh, my brain went blank for a minute. Red Heart reflective yarn. Okay, the other thing that we're going to do this week is this project is not finished yet. I'm still working on it. And this is also using the butterfly stitch. I came across this yarn. It's a chunky yarn by Yarn Bee. It's called First Love Pink Teal Multi. And I thought that it represented the Hashimoto's theme we have going for the month. And so this is another one. This might be ready for Monday, but that's something else that's coming along. Okay, so that's what's happening this week. Temperature scarf, squares of the month, a couple of new patterns, and a redo of an old pattern. Okay, so let's get to our question. I had actually got a couple of questions. One of them was, okay, so if I chain and I single crochet in the second chain from the hook, what happens to that first chain? And then the other one was, if I join in a circle and I join to the second chain, what happens to that first chain? So I'm going to talk about that today. Got me a little dog prop here. Now, when you're stitching in rows, and I've got a chain here, I'm using this nice thick yarn. I've got a chain here, and I've chained 9 chains. And what you're going to do is you'll begin your stitches in the second chain from the hook. And the reason that we don't stitch in the first chain from the hook is the first chain is acting as our turning chain. When you stitch a row, good morning, Rachel. Let's clink in. When you're stitching in single crochet rows, you always chain 1 and turn, and then you begin in the next stitch. Well, we don't have a row, we just have a row of chains. And so what you'll do is you'll skip that first chain, and then you'll begin single crocheting in the second chain from the hook across. Now I've got this big chunky hook to show you. I'm going to stitch a row across real fast, and like I said, the reason that you don't stitch in that first chain next to the hook is it is acting as a turning chain. So here's the next question. What's a turning chain, right? Okay, so a turning chain is a chain that you chain at the end of a row just so that when you turn, your next row lays nicely. You don't stitch in the turning chain. It's just one little chain. Now this is only for single crochet. When you half double crochet or triple crochet, you're going to stitch farther down on the chain. For instance, if I did a row of 9 chains and my pattern says start with half double crochets, they're usually going to have you start in the 3rd chain, and the first 2 chains will count as a half double crochet. Same thing with the triple. They'll have you go down and start, and then the first 3 chains will be counting as your double crochet. And it's on up just like that for when you begin. So we're not going to chain in the first, we're not going to stitch in the first single crochet. We placed 8 single crochets across because we chained 9. And then when you get to the end of your row, what's the first thing your pattern usually says? It either says turn and chain 1 or chain 1 and turn. And just so you know, they're the same thing. It's just the way some patterns are written a little different than others. So I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn. And by putting that chain 1 there, it helps your turn lay smoothly and crisply. And that's the purpose of it for when you're stitching in rows. So you chain 1. When you're single crocheting, you go right back in that next stitch and then you chain across. Now remember, every pattern designer is different and they have reasons that they have you do things certain ways. Some pattern designers will say you're doing double crochets and it'll say chain 2 instead of chain 3. They usually have a reason for that. And so make sure when you're following a pattern that you do what the pattern tells you to do. And if you have a question, always ask the designer who wrote the pattern. I've come across several people that'll ask a question about my pattern and they'll ask it in a group and they've never emailed me. So make sure you email me. I'm happy to answer your questions. And if I don't get right to it, sometimes they go to spam and I forget to check my spam. So if I don't get to it, you can always, if you purchased a pattern through Ravelry or Craftsy or Etsy, or if it's free on Ravelry or whatever, or even on my blog, you can always comment and ask a question. I'm always happy to answer your questions. Okay, but sometimes it's a preference by a designer, and sometimes it's just because they, depending on what they're having you do after that. They may have you do single, double, triple, quadruple, or whatever, you know, in the pattern, and so you're not always going to do it exactly the same. Okay, so that's when stitching in rows. When you're stitching in the round, I've got some yellow yarn here. I have 2 chains on here. When you're stitching in the round, a lot of times they'll have you, if you're going to stitch a single crochet, they'll have you go right into that first chain. And sometimes it'll be the second chain. That particular thing is also having to do with how they want the pattern to lay and if it needs to be nice and flat. One thing, that's why I've got my little puppy here. When you're doing Ammy's little stuffed animals, most of the time you'll stitch right in that first single crochet next to the hook because we don't want any spaces in Ammy. It needs to be nice and tight. Isn't this cute? My daughter did this for me one year for my birthday. This is a little Ammy of Rosie. I have one of Maximo too. It's back there. You can't see. I got a new chair. I've been sitting in a wooden kitchen chair up here, and I told my husband I need a new chair for my desk. So I got a new chair for my desk downstairs because the arms were wearing out, and so I took the arms off and I brought that chair up here into my yarn room, which is really nice because no arms, it gives me room to move and work. Anyway, back to our story. Back to our questions. When you're working with Ammies or little stuffed animals, I call them stuffies because I always have trouble spelling it. Ammy Jerami, however you say that. I can't even say it. But I do love making them. But we don't want any holes or spaces. So almost always, and I always say almost always, because people have certain ways of doing things. And hi, good morning, Marie. I just saw you pop in. Or is it Mary? You can tell me. I'll be honest with you. I'm terrible with like foreign languages and accents and things. My brain, I took 2 years of Spanish and I can hardly even speak Spanish. We lived in Germany for 4 years. And by the time I left, I could have a conversation in German. I can't hardly do that anymore. My brain just doesn't work. It's all about crochet. Now, if they had talked to me in crochet, I probably could have figured it out. Anyway, which, by the way, someone said to me the other day, you say, well, anyway, all the time. I said, I know. I can't stop it. Well, anyway, this little jerami is started right here, you can see, and it's nice and tight, and we don't want any holes. So they almost always, on the little stuffed animals, they'll have you start in that first one. Sometimes they won't. You know, it's just, sometimes it's just a preference by a designer. The main thing in crocheting is you want your rows to be even and neat, and you want your circles to be even and neat. And if you have too much space, it's not going to look good. A lot of times, even if the pattern is in double crochet or single crochet or triple crochet or whatever crochet, I might still have you do just a chain 1 and start your double crochet or triple or whatever in the very first stitch on the row. And because it just depends on the pattern that's going to be worked on that row. So, as a rule, most patterns, like we did on this little demonstration, sort of, really wasn't a demonstration, we chained, and then, because basically you're chaining and then turning to begin your first row. And you're going to begin single crochet in the second row from the hook. And if you're not sure actually what that means, let me pull this out. So here's our chain. Our hook is in here. And we usually state in a pattern the second chain from the hook, because we don't count the loop as a chain. This is your first chain, and then this is your second chain. And you would begin stitching in that second chain. And like I said, that first chain basically is acting as a turning chain. And again, a turning chain is just a chain that we stitch for when we turn to make our rows lay nice and even. And that's pretty much, I hope that answered the question. Sometimes I repeat it and just because I want it to... Is yours pausing? You might want to check your internet. Someone the other day was saying theirs was pausing and nobody else's was. It just might be your internet's coming in and out. But if you miss any part of the video, I'm always going to put it on YouTube, and it's always going to be on my Facebook page. So you won't miss anything. Okay, so we talked about the new stuff, and we answered the question, and now I want to bring up this box. I received a great big box from Red Heart. I got it in the mail. How else? And let's see what's inside. Are you excited? I'm totally excited. I got it all open up here. Well, we got 3 skeins of Swanky. That's exciting. That's going to make some fun Valentine's spring item. I'll just toss it on the floor. Look at this. This is Red Heart's. It's called Sweet. And this is their new blanket. And this would be something fun to do some finger crochet with. How about that? And then we got two skeins. This is called Midnight. It's in the boutique line. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that sparkle. Isn't that gorgeous? Now that would make something fun for Valentine's Day. And then we also got, oh, this is beautiful. This is called Gleam. And this has a gold sparkle in it, and it's like a deep crimson red. Isn't that gorgeous? All right. Let's see. This is Unforgettable Boutique. Isn't that gorgeous? Unforgettable Boutique. Okay. Then we have, oh, this is a new shade. This is called, it's upside down. Let's see. Oh, Tealberry. And this is in the boutique. Isn't this pretty? It's got like teal and berry and cream and gray. 2 of those. All right. Then I got some fleece yarn. And I got 5 of those. I need to make the dogs a new blanket out of this. So that's everything that's in the box. Oh, there's my packing list. All right. So that's the unboxing of the yarn box from Red Heart Yarns. That's exciting. I can see lots of fun projects coming from that. Lots of fun ideas. I do like the fleece yarns. I don't know if you've ever tried those. They're a lot of fun. But you have to kind of be careful because they can, when you're working with them, stretch a little and they roll. So you have to be careful with those. And I'm looking forward to working with that lavender. This one. Isn't that neat? I'm really looking forward to working with this one. Do some finger crochet. All right. So, that's about all I have to talk with you about with today. Now, has anybody done any work on their, I lost my scarf. There it is. Like, don't lose that. Has anyone else done any work on their temperature scarf? What I'd like you to do is post a picture over on my PPD event, Posh Pooch Design event, and I added that event and invited everyone from the PPD group. If you're not a part of the group, just go over. It is a private group because I was having a lot of problems with spam. a lot of, I don't know what they were doing, but it was just nasty stuff and trying to sell hats and shoes and coats and glasses and stuff and shirts. And so I made the group private, and that's because we were just getting so much spam. So I'll post the link to the group underneath this video when we're all done. And then you can join that group and post your pictures of your temperature blanket. The same thing with your squares. You can post pictures of your squares there. And if you have any questions, the pattern on the blog for this square is a photo tutorial. I went ahead and did the step-by-step on there for those people who really prefer a written pattern over a video. So that's everything that's going on this week that I know of. Who knows? It might be something else. So anyway, thanks for spending this time with me today. And I hope that you'll crochet something lovely this week. And as my granddaughter says, stay crafty, my friends.